Rich Eisen Show, playing Goodfellas tunes all day, getting set for Ray Liotta to join us. That's hour number 3, but hour number 2 rolls on with my good friend Dan Patrick. Good to see you here in person in the studio, DP.
This looks great. You guys did a great job.
Well, you know how DirecTV rolls.
Yes, they did a great job.
And I was saying that to you for years. Envy of the business.
Yeah.
You and your show.
Yep.
The fact that DirecTV has bestowed this studio upon anything that I could do is really incredible. The man cave, can't be beaten. So,
yeah,
the East Coast man cave.
Well, what you do is I just took all the stuff that I had at home that my wife wanted out of the house in the first place, and then I had a place to put it.
This is it
right?
for me, yeah.
Yeah. So all the stuff, when are we getting rid of that? And then you say, well, yeah, I could put that in the man cave. Like I have the, when Fergie and the Black Eyed Peas did the Super Bowl, there's a bust of her that they use for her dress.
Yeah.
So I have Fergie's bust. And then my wife says, can you get that out of the house? So I took the bust of Fergie, very lifelike, and put it in the man cave.
So, because I'm getting a lot from Susie, that's your Sue, my Susie, who's basically saying when something was in the house, she would, why don't you take that to the studio?
Yeah.
That might look good at work, the studio.
Yeah, beanbag chair.
Yeah.
All those things. But I collect everything. But the reason why I collect it is because I gave all of my Sports Illustrateds away. I had 25 years of Sports Illustrateds. And then my mom kept saying, we got to get these out of the house. So I gave them all away.
In Ohio? Back in Ohio?
Yeah. And then I had 1,500 albums. And I moved into a small apartment with my wife, and we didn't have room for it. So I gave away all of this vinyl.
To who?
I sold 1,500 albums for $300.
Oh, my gosh.
And it's probably worth $25,000 because I had all these collectibles. It was crazy.
They're pristine? They're in great shape?
Oh, yeah. This is my radio days. So now my kids are collecting vinyl, and then they'll kind of rub it in the fact that, you had all of these albums, didn't you, Dad?
Yeah.
They'll bring home Abbey Road or Zeppelin Physical Graffiti double album. And you're going, yep, had them all. Yep.
So
true.
which one was your favorite? Which one do you regret
all the
most?
albums. The albums, absolutely.
Well, which album of all the albums do you regret not holding on to?
Well, I had picture discs. So it'd be like a...
Picture discs?
A Molly Hatchet picture disc. Just an Elvis Costello read my Funny Valentine 45. There was a show that was called Interview with Jim Ladd. And Jim Ladd would interview Elton John or Billy Joel. And so you had this interview and all their music, explaining their music on these albums. I just had all of this stuff. And I have five albums now. I'm slowly rebuilding my collection.
But I remember your office in Bristol when you finally got one. And because you were in cubicles when I first arrived there in 1996.
We would get undressed in our cubicle.
Yeah, I remember. Just walking by, there's Gary Miller, pantsless. Yeah. That's the first of many times that I saw him
That had nothing to do with sports.
Hey, now.
Yeah, Gary.
But I mean, but I would see that.
Like Linda Cohn would walk by, and you're getting undressed, and say, "Hey, Elko, hey, Dan."
Because that commercial with you and KO putting on your makeup, the Sports Center commercial, that was based on what you actually were doing prior to a Sports Center, correct? Back in the day?
Keith and I. So if you have the game Battleship, where you're on this side and the other guy's on the other side, so we had a cubicle with a wall. So I'm on one side, Keith's on the other. So just the cubicle. So we would talk to each other in the course of the night writing Sports Center, but we really came face to face. It would just be like you throw out a comment, he threw out a comment, and then we'd go into the bathroom at like 10:35 to be on at 11 o'clock, and then we would put on our makeup together, just talking.
Yeah.
And then we'd go down and do a show. They didn't have makeup for the first 6 or 7 years. Isn't that amazing? They didn't want to spend money for makeup.
Right.
And then they told us it was a fire code violation if we got offices. Somehow
Wait a minute.
only the talent's office will catch fire, not a producer's office.
Well, that's not flammable. Clearly, caution, flammable.
But you could get a job at ESPN.
Right.
You'd be in there for 6 weeks, and I have an office if you were a coordinating producer.
Yeah.
I'd been there 10 years, and then I finally got an office. And I remember they came to me when they were going to give Chris Berman an office, and they gathered us all around, and they said, we're going to give Chris an office. And I go, give him a freaking building for all I care.
Yeah.
The guy built the place.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't give us offices. So I just started to say, all right, well, then I'm just going to get undressed out here, and whoever sees.
So if he was the George Washington of offices, who was the John Adams? Who got the second office from
Bob
the
Lee.
sports? The general.
Yes, General Lee got his.
He got his. Where were you on the office?
I might have been in there after that. I might have been.
You were the
third.
Jefferson?
I may have been the
KO didn't get one? Or you and KO had to get
both,
it together?
Yeah, both. We did. And then I asked for a closet to put my suits in. They said, that's precedent setting. We can't do that for you. And then I asked for another monitor because I was doing more live highlights than anybody, Keith and I. So I said, can I have 2 monitors so I can watch 2 games? We can't. That's precedent setting. So no matter what you ask for, the line was, that's precedent setting.
Yeah. As much as you wanted to be groundbreaking and iconoclastic.
Yes.
Do you remember when they were redoing the offices and there was a trailer out in the parking lot? That we would be writing our shows in the trailer in the parking lot. And there was KO with his pipe in the triple wide in a parking lot. One finger banging out the copy.
We were trailer trash. Nobody wrote a show faster than Keith Olbermann.
With one finger, by the way, right?
If he was angry, you could hear him even. It was even louder. It was.
What do you mean if? What do you mean
okay,
if?
when? But there was a show that we did. Where he was angry about something. He had written a lead into a show, and we had a coordinating producer, Ed Schimmel. And so...
Ed Schimmel.
And Schimmel, he talked like this.
Yes, he would.
KO, I don't think you should put that in the lead.
He talked like a Dick Tracy villain. Ed Schimmel,
he made Belichick look eloquent. So he would go, KO, I don't think you can say that. And Keith went in and erased the whole show. He just had ad-lib VO for everything. So it was on. There was no script
for the entire
show.
Did he erase your scripts too?
No, just his.
Okay.
So this had to be around 10:20. We're going on the air 11. So then Ed comes over to me and goes, DP, KO erased all of his scripts. Could you tell him to rewrite the show? It's like, it's not my job. You know, I'm writing the show. And could you tell KO to write the show? So I said, Keith, they want you to write the show. DP, do you know what they did? And I go, sort of, like you can't edit Keith. And normally he was brilliant when what he was writing. And so then he went back and wrote the show in the span of about 20 minutes. And you know how long it takes to write a show. It can take hours to write a show.
So he actually
went back and
recreated and reconstructed. In 20 minutes, what it normally... with one finger. I'll never forget, and the left hand sort of hits the space bar, and then the right hand just types one finger, everything else.
It was so
I'll never forget,
archaic.
One of my first shows that I'm with Dan Patrick here on the Rich Eisen Show, and we will talk about the world of sports in a matter of moments, but I do remember when I first arrived there, and I was doing a show with Keith, and it was rare that he missed an ideas meeting. He was at a doctor's appointment or something like that, because he was always in the ideas meeting. He basically ran the ideas meeting, certainly the ones that I was at. And it was about Game 7 goalie performances, because Wah was going up against probably Brodeur in a Game 7 of Stanley Cup Finals or something like that, and wanted to do a home-cooked piece, as we called it, for Sports Center. Yeah. And Bill Fairweather was the coordinating producer with his thick, padded accent, And so we were just like, we were spitballing about some of these Game 7 performances, couldn't come up with many off the top of our heads. We're like, we'll wait for Keith to come in. And I was sitting there, this was the old newsroom, which was set up sort of like a NASA control room, right? And I was sitting in like row 3. Keith walks in some sort of sports softball Letterman jacket, right? With his pipe and about 18 encyclopedia book type periodicals underneath his arm. And they're like, hey, KO, this is the idea we want to do. And he says off the top of his head, oh, yes, 1934, coach of the Rangers. He was a former goalie. They didn't have hockey masks. Goalie gets knocked out because the puck hits him in the face. Coach comes out, shut out Game 6, shut out Game 7. I have a photograph of him at my desk. I'll do the lead and put it over my shoulder. And I sat there and go, oh, my God.
Yeah.
But you were just as great, Dan. I mean, I learned a lot from you about how to do the show and then how to treat others. How to treat others that you loved and respected.
But you know what? I wanted to have fun in there, and I didn't want to be Keith Like I didn't, could I have been a little more, more like Keith in delivery or, how he formed his show. And that would be the educated version of SportsCenter. I wanted to sort of play off his strengths. And then if you have any combination there of anchors, you have to have opposite. I mean, that's what makes Abbott and Costello or Lewis and Martin or The Odd Couple or any of those people who were obviously on a much higher pedestal, but I had to complement his talents. And I had to figure that out. What role can I play that will best serve him? And he was the best team I ever had because he understood TV. And so you're trying to think, can I have fun with catchphrases and let Keith be this, and he'll sometimes dip into, what I do. And so you sort of meshed it, because you could take a half hour of me and a half hour of him, but you couldn't take an hour of both of us, singularly. So we kind of figured that out in bite-sized portions, how to make it work. We never, ever discussed strategy or what made it success. Never once. Because I never wanted to analyze it, because then it would feel like we're doing something on purpose. It played out live every night, and that's what was fun about it. And I see Jay and Dan on Fox Sports, and they were labeled the Canadian version of us. And I saw them at the Olympics, and I said, the one thing that you guys don't have is we weren't allowed to do what we were doing. We were trying to do stuff behind the back of management. Management's saying to those guys, hey, do whatever you want, be crazy. We're making fun of our bosses at night. We're hoping that they're not watching. And so you had that element of we're getting away with something at night. And it was a little more dangerous. The fact that Keith would say on an error or a goalie let a goal and he'd go, hello. And our boss, Bob Eaton, would say that to you when he walked into the office, hello. Keith said that during a highlight to make fun of our boss. Hello. And I'm going, oh, my God, we're going to get fired. Because we nearly got fired. We got called into the office, and that's when we thought we were going to be fired. And then we walked out, and I'm thinking, I have 3 kids at the time, and I can't get fired. And they basically told us to start saying, this is SportsCenter, not this is the big show.
Oh, I remember this.
So I said, oh, my God, what are we going to do? And Keith goes, F them. I go, what? He goes, F them. I go, F them. And I'm like, I should call home and talk to my wife first, but F them. So that night, we had to go on, because we kept calling it the big show, because we didn't know if anybody was watching.
Sure.
Because they never told us anything positive of what we were doing. So they said, we want you to call it, this is SportsCenter. And I'm going, okay. Keith goes, no, we're going to go so over the top with this.
So what did you do again?
It'd be like, coming up on the show, we'll have highlights of this and this, and this is SportsCenter. And so they created an ad campaign called This is SportsCenter, was based on that. This is SportsCenter.
Making fun of management, you played right into their hands. We're going to take a break here. 1 minute. We come back. We'll talk with DP. Dan Patrick here in the Rich Eisen Show studio. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Dan Patrick here in the Rich Eisen Show studio. So I was saying at the top of the broadcast, and I'm sure you talked about the Will Smith ejection last night, the rosin and sunscreen, and saying, what's the difference between that and Deflategate? What Brady was allegedly doing to the footballs, isn't that the same standard of basically using a foreign object to get the balls that you use the way that you want, and thus the suspension of Brady is throwing somebody in jail for speeding? What do you think?
Okay, you can have sunscreen and rosin, but you can't have them combined.
So you can have sunscreen on one arm, rosin on the other.
And I can have rosin on. You're allowed to have those substances.
You just can't mix them.
You can't mix them. Why is it we don't care what a football player puts in his body? That would be cheating. But if you do something to the football, that's cheating. We care what you put in your body as a baseball player for some reason, but we don't care what you do to the ball or bat.
It's odd.
Like our justice system, our sports justice system is pretty weird. NASCAR, you're trying to get the edge. You go right up to the edge. You're trying to sort of cheat. Baseball, if you hey, trying to get an edge here, trying to scuff up the ball, trying to get something, put a little pine tar on it. Football, we don't care if you're using HGH or steroids, but don't touch the football. I mean, it's weird.
Well, you saw the reaction of Smith as he's getting ejected. He's not like, slump shoulder, oh, I've been busted. He's yelling at Gonzalez. He's yelling at Freddie Gonzalez, the Braves manager, because the etiquette that he has just breached is what is worse than mixing the sunscreen and rosin together on the arm.
We're going to do that to your guy. That this happened in the World Series, Cardinals, Tigers, La Russa, and Leland.
Yes.
And I think you had a controversy there. And they knew that if you called out one guy, they were going to call out your guy. So it's basically, hey, we'll move on here. Mm-hmm. So that was that unwritten rule of two veteran managers who knew my guy's doing it, your guy's doing it. And I come back to that with the football. If I'm playing against you and you're Andrew Luck and I'm Tom Brady, I say, do whatever you want to the football to your liking. Mm-hmm. Have a parameter, have a window that says this is where these quarterbacks like it. And it ranges from here to here. And then you can do it because it's in your hands. We care about fantasy numbers. We care about offense. We care about the quarterback. Don't care about the defense. Why don't I just cater to you openly and say, do what you want, make the football to your liking, and I'll make the football to my liking. There's no unfair advantage there.
Will Smith is going to be suspended 8 games. That just broke.
Yeah, according to Buster Olney.
8 games. So 8 into 162, it's not a quarter of a season.
This is not my department.
I know. You don't do math.
No math. No
you
math.
Didn't know
on
that math
show.
is on that.
No math.
He's 8 games can be suspended.
Wow.
Well, what was Pineda suspended for having it on his neck? I mean, I think that was just one start. This is a reliever, so they're putting him out for 8 games.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I was just Buster Olney reporting that from the Worldwide Leader.
But he said that he said it was cold.
Well, he
windy.
said chilly and windy, and the reason why, as one of our callers called in to say, it's a safety issue, because if he can't grip the football, because the baseball, because it's chilly and windy, this helps him get a grip. So it's for player safety, so he doesn't hit somebody.
But you will get batters who will say, I would prefer they used it to
Freddie
have better
Freeman said it after the game.
that they want you to have control, that if you're throwing a breaking ball and it just stays out there, then somebody's going to get hit.
Rick, sorry. Pineda got 10 games, too.
Pineda got 10 games.
So you guys know.
And you'd think this would have been over after that famous Dodgers-Angels game where the umpire busted the pitch. That's the one where Reggie Jackson tried to kill the Queen, if you remember that. Remember that game?
Yes, I do.
Every time I see these umpires, you were talking about on your show today, and I was laughing. I was hearing it on the way in. I think of Naked Gun every time there's umpires that come up there, right?
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yes.
An instant classic. Dan Patrick here in studio. What do you think of the NBA playoffs, Dan? What do you think of what we're seeing in these playoffs?
When's the last time you were fascinated by somebody who didn't dunk?
Steph Curry, right? That's a great question.
It's amazing in a sport where we celebrate those who can dunk. All highlights have to do with dunks. Now we've created somebody that your son or daughter will look at and say, he's not big, he doesn't jump through the roof, he's got a great handle, and he shoots real quick. So I think Steph Curry is going to open up people's eyes about how to play the game or not get discouraged if you don't play a certain way. You can create that, not to that level. Mm-hmm. Great handle, which is so underrated for him, and the ability to get your shot off for a kid who's 6'2", and people thought he would be a role player at best in the NBA. He's created this. He's become transcendent, where you're thinking of him differently than just a basketball player. He's created his own brand with how he plays.
Is it me, or are you seeing the same thing too? Which is obviously a great way to set it up. The way that the ball goes through the net does something different on his shots than everybody else's. That if you just took a close-up of the rim and the net and saw a ball go through it, you'd be able to say Steph Curry took that shot.
J.J. Redick was like that. He's one of the few people I've ever seen, and I think he's one of the greatest shooters in college basketball history. He would shoot, and the net wouldn't move. Steph Curry practices free throws, where he has to make 10 in a row without touching the rim. It just net. So in his mind, if he shoots even his jumpers and he hits rim, that's a miss. So that's why you get that perfection. He wants it to go in. Like, there's nothing more devastating when you're guarding somebody and they score in a way that they don't miss. The net just sort of goes like this, like you're going, oh, my God. It's not like it sort of bounces in or it's sort of going in a little bit. His goes in where it's, I can do this all night. And I think that's where he can just, because you can play great defense, but he'll devastate you.
Do you have a Kobe Bryant tweet on this?
Kobe Bryant last night during the game tweeted out, when the shots you take are the shots the defense wants you to take, but are the shots you're comfortable taking. That pretty much sums him up perfectly.
But we're not sure what makes him uncomfortable, because what appears to make him uncomfortable doesn't. He almost expects to be uncomfortable because he always had to sort of fight for his place with his style of play, and so he's used to that.
Are you surprised he's turned into a superstar and an MVP, considering the knock on him coming out of college and then the early ankle injuries that kind of seemed to set him back?
Well, the ankle injury was that was important, because I wondered if they were going to extend him with that ankle injury, and I thought, boy, that could be one of those that never goes away. When he came back, I remember interviewing him. He was coming back for another year at Davidson to learn to play point. I thought that was the most important thing that he did, is he was a shooter at Davidson. He came back to understand the point guard position. And I think that's been the biggest difference for him.
I know you've got a heart out. Sports Jeopardy on Crackle. You were out here shooting the latest ones. When do we see those get posted, the ones you just shot this week?
Those will be coming up probably in a couple of weeks. We've got a few more shows. We shoot the championship tomorrow.
Fantastic.
But it's been, like, I consider myself pretty good in sports trivia. But when you see these folks,
the real deal.
Oh gosh, you're just there's some people that don't have lives. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I was one of those people. I would go to a party, and you couldn't leave the party at the end of the night until you stumped me with a trivia question. So imagine you got 7 guys with their girlfriends and they're ready to leave, and you had to go to the door and you had to stump me. If you didn't, you had to go back to the end of the line. So you can imagine, there were some girls that hated me. And I would never, especially if a guy had a hot girl and he was trying to leave, oh, man, I would, like, whatever it took to get the right answer to send him back to the back of the line.
Nice.
Yes.
Before I let you go, because you have a heart out, you know, you are the best I've ever seen in ramping up.
Oh, okay.
You're a radio guy. Now, Del Tufo, you know I like to do this, and NFL Network people know I like to do this every now and then when we're just waiting around, sitting around, ramping up to a certain song. A Lovely Day is usually my ramp-up song. Do you? Can you choose one, any song that you want from back in your radio day? Which one do you like to ramp up to the best? You are the best at this, Dan.
Post-1973, preferably.
Yeah. What do you got?
Do you have Earth, Wind, and Fire? Oh, you don't have that.
No, he may have
September?
September? Mike Del Tufo's going to dial it up.
Boy.
To play us out, to use a Bill O'Reilly term. We're doing it live. Dan Patrick, Sports Jeopardy on Crackle. New episodes coming up in a couple weeks. DP show every day here on Audience from noon to 3 Eastern. Here we go. No, I mean, 9 to noon Eastern. Here we go. Dan Patrick. Go for it. Can you hear it? Start again, Mike Del Tufo.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Start it again.
Start it again. Start it again. Tell him to start it again. There we go.
Super Bad Music Radio, WDJX, Xenia, Fairborn, and Beaver Creek, and are we having fun on the Rich Eisen Show? Coming up, we're giving away tickets to the Super Bowl. Oh, it's May, but this is September with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Walk off!
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.